Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time, whatever day it is, and wherever you are listening. Joined with me, as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
Happy daylight savings time, everyone.
Mr. Jamie Page.
Happy UK time, whatever time it is.
He never knows what time of the day it is Jamie. I should have said. And also, apparently, why are you down as T-Boy? Dale?
It's a long story.
Fair enough. Milk 2 sugars, thank you very much. And it's also Dale joining us as well. Shall we? I mean, what are we going to talk about tonight, Chris? So should we go straight into the topic? Because I was going to do the sponsors towards the end as part of.
No. Let's go ahead and do the sponsors now. That way, we've got plenty of time to make no sense in later on. Because that's pretty much what's going to happen.
Use up all the material, and then we'll try and fluff the rest out afterwards.
Exactly.
So, as always, tonight's show is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Woodturners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad at Mancrafting, Pam from Highland Boxes, and also Steve from Harneal Media, who does all the internet-y type stuff. Honestly, hand on heart, seriously, kind of going a little bit off script here. These are awesome people doing awesome things, so I would highly recommend going and checking out their stuff. All the information can be found on the website, makesinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. And Jamie, are you ever going to take this back on and do stuff for the internet, or are you just going to leave it with
Probably
Steve?
Not.
Fair play. Okay.
Work? 4-letter word. Never do it.
Excellent.
It's like water. Jamie never drinks it. You know why? Because you know what fish do in water, don't you? It's just Jamie's not having any. Anyway, okay.
Dear, oh dear. That would be scary in its own right. Jamie actually doing something towards the website. Goodness only knows what.
Wait, I've got a joke for you. You want to hear a joke?
Go on then.
All right. So a guy walks into a restaurant, sits down, decides he wants a steak, orders a steak. The waiter says, "How would you like your steak?" The guy says, "I'd like it like winning an argument with my wife." And the waiter starts to laugh, and he goes, "Okay, rare it is then."
I have learnt. Just don't even bother.
I thought that was funny as hell. Because you'd have to be married to understand that, I guess. Anyway.
I was sort of half expecting you to say, so he just walked off and you never getting a steak.
No, it's like, rare it is then. Yeah, I never win an argument with my wife. Ever. Doesn't happen.
Excellent. So how are you then, Dale? You're joining us this evening. What's up with you at the moment?
I
don't mean that in a kind of derogatory, like you're ill or something like that, which hopefully you're not. I mean, how are you? What are you doing?
I'm recovering from pneumonia.
He's had pneumonia.
Really?
Yeah. Really? So not a lot. I think would be the takeaway from that.
So does that mean you're just going to be whining all night? Oh, that's terrible.
I'll be, hello. It sounded like Billy Connolly.
Nothing new about moaning.
This ought to be an interesting audio experience for those people who aren't just.
All right, there, pal. All right.
The wheezing you hear in the background is just Dale breathing. Don't worry about it and don't concern yourself. Okay.
Sounding like an obscene phone call, it is Dale from Maple Tree Studios.
Hello, darling. Hi, beautiful.
Well, that just took a turn for the. That's definitely scary. There we go. Segue. Absolutely terrified.
With Dale on the show, does that mean we can start charging $1.50 an hour or a minute?
Hey,
with a voice like that.
Oh, I don't know.
All right,
the podcast just became a premium rate number.
Podcast a premium rate number.
Today's topic was my brain. Oh, come on, hush up. Today's topic was my brainchild. I'm almost sorry to say at this point. Actually, I am very sorry to say at this point. It's the scariest things that have ever happened to you. And they don't have to be workshop related. Of course, if you have workshop related scary stories, and let's hear about them. And I'm talking to the folks out in the chat as well. So if you guys have a story, start getting the digits busy on the keyboard because we'd like to hear them. And Jamie, if you wouldn't mind, keep track and see if there is a couple out there, and we'll share those with you.
I'll keep an eye on it.
We have some questions. First, if you want to start off with questions, Richard, before we get into it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds good to me. I mean, presumably, people have got some sort of like scary stories.
Well, I think so.
I hope so.
Waiting to see if anything pops up in the chat here. Our first question comes from Christopher Smith.
Like a no.
Shut up, Richard. Christopher Smith, who says, "Is it true that on Halloween, if you say Team Router 3 times, Jimmy Page will appear and murder you?"
Yeah, funny you say that, Chris, because that's what I'm going to murder you with. Hashtag not sponsored.
Oh my God!
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely. So Jamie's just held up. Was that a Dremel with a plunge base?
Dremel with a router. Yeah, plunge base. Yeah,
So
for scroll sawing.
Okay, I was going to say that is the scroll saw's router, isn't it? It's kind of like the Fisher Price My First Power Tool from Toys R Us kind of thing.
It's a drill. It's not even a router. It's a drill.
It's got a drill bit in it.
That's the Fisher Price training wheels on the bicycle that you got for Christmas. Okay. Oh.
You know, like Disney's Beauty and the Beast. You know, the little chip, the little teacup.
Oh yeah.
That's what that router sounds like.
It's just awesome.
But no, genuinely, seriously, 100%. Like, I'm going to be serious now. As scary as it is, Jamie having a router, presumably that's for putting all the little holes in so you can.
Yeah.
Put your
So
why not? Seriously, 100%. Why not use why do you not use a drill with a drill bit?
So when you do intricate cuts as really thin as what some of these are, close together, like can be as close as 1 to 2 millimeters close together. If you drill and you're at a slight angle, and because I stack cut, where once the blade meets up at the top, that could also eventually become one big hole, as opposed to the 2 separate holes that you wanted. And I nearly made that mistake quite a few times on the last project that I did when I was stack cutting 3 tigers. So the best thing to do is have something like a drill perfect down, and my workshop's not big enough for what do you call it, a drill press.
In case anybody hasn't noticed,
pillar drill, whatever you want to call it.
We've already apparently gone off topic.
It could be scary when you do 30 hours worth of scrolling and then you pull it apart and realise, oh no.
We've got some comments from the chat. Caitlin said when her spalted bowl blew up on her. Yeah, that would suck.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Mark the Gentleman Woodturner said waking up from a coma and realizing he was on life support? Yeah, that'll wake you up, or at least Blue Light Turner says mine would have
questions.
Mine would have to be
the crackling electrics.
Mine would have to be his first trip to Jamie's workshop and the crackling electronics that are in there.
Scott's comment's actually a good segue, actually, because mine was coming into it and seeing the wonky conduit afterwards.
Which, of course, you could see because he put lots and lots of lights in there for you, which previously you didn't have. Thank you very much.
Hashtag Dale did.
Wayne says he got shot at when he was in Oman. That's not good, Wayne. Unless you're in the armed forces, you don't really expect that.
That's because of his accent.
Klondike Craftsman says shop scare, edge jointing, quarter 1x4 oak, 11 p.m. and the power went out, pitch black while pushing a piece through. Seemed to take forever for the cut head to stop turning. Yeah, I bet.
Just reminded me, it wasn't something that I'd actually thought of before, but having a bandsaw blade snap.
I've had that happen.
Just for a split second, that's a change your trousers moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
that was massive. Your fingers are there, and the first thought was, "Have I got all my fingers there?" And then you go, "It's just."
I've never experienced that. Luckily,
it's one of those. It happens to me every single time because it just comes out of nowhere. You're cutting away, and it just goes, bang, as the blade goes, and then it's just that fraction of a second. You're just like, "Am I injured?" And then you go, "No, it's fine. It's just broken." But it's just for that split
It's not
second.
well, the problem is it's not quiet sound. It's a very loud sound when that happens, because I've had that happen to me. And boy, that one is Richie was being kind when he went bang, because it does a lot more than that. I mean,
I've never had anything more than about a 1/4 inch blade go, but I can imagine if you've got a big blade on there.
well, I had a 1/2 inch blade break on me once, and that I don't mind telling you. Yeah, that was a check your drawers moment.
To make sure you've got a spare blade, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Questions. Andy says, "What's the scariest thing that you know of that actually happened to somebody else?" I'll go first. What you guys think about that? Because I had to spend some time to recall this too. Years ago, I knew a single lady. She was in her early 30s, who had a man break into her house at night. Obviously, now that's scary enough. But the scarier part was her bedroom was upstairs. And she said this guy was whispering her name as he was making his way up the stairs. Needless to say, she locked her door and called the cops. The guy never got caught. He got away. Yeah, that's kind of scary. Think about that. If you're a female alone in your house and there's some dude climbing your stairs going, Margie. He's like,
Who's Margie? What?
Well, if your name was Margie, Richard, don't.
It'd be slightly less scary if he was coming up the stairs going, your name.
Insert,
get out.
Your name, insert here.
Name here.
Your name, insert here. Yeah, exactly.
Probably not done his homework.
Anyway, that's the scariest thing I could think of, because remember that kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies when she told that to me. I was like, holy moly.
Honestly, if that happened to me, my house would be on the market the next day. I'd be like, no, that's it. I'm moving house.
Yeah, I'd be buying a handgun the next day. I'm like, nope, that's not going to happen again. That door's going to have holes in it before I do that again. All right, anybody else? You guys got another one? Anyone? Can you think of something that happened to somebody else?
Something happened to somebody else. So I've got someone that I kind of grew up to call cousin, if you like. She was only, I want to say, 21, 22 at the time, but she used to be manager of quite a big jewellers in London. And she was one of the last ones, and she had the actual keys to the jewellers. And she got just outside the front of her house, and someone had come and robbed her and stole the keys to the jewellers. And basically, it went viral on Facebook for a little while.
No kidding.
And they actually found out that they had been stalking her for a good couple of weeks, found out what route she takes home and all this kind of stuff.
That's creepy.
So that's pretty, yeah. So
Well, tonight's show took kind of a turn for the surreal, didn't it?
that's a bit, that was kind of creepy.
A friend of mine was in Texas, had an IHOP, having as you do, pancakes in the IHOP.
Uh-huh.
And a couple had an argument with another couple, a couple of tables away in the argument, and one couple left. And then another individual drove past and sprayed front of the IHOP with around a bullet or two, very Texan style.
Oh, you're kidding.
And my friend says at that point he absolutely understood that adrenaline was brown. At that point, he was nowhere near it, but the effect was sufficiently scary as to require special treatment in the underwear department.
No, that's fun to see in the movies. It's not fun to live.
It is.
That. It's fun.
No.
It's fun. What about you, Rich? You got anything from the service, maybe?
I was just thinking of one incident that happened. I was on a camp in South Wales. There's a big training area in South Wales, and we were up there doing like urban exercises. And when you're doing sort of fighting in houses and buildings and stuff like that, you have a training grenade.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably changed now, but they used to be called Chorley grenades, and they're like a rubber body, but they have or had the actual detonator portion of a hand grenade in the top. So if you don't know, the hand grenades come in two parts. It's like that stereotypical kind of green metal bulb shape, and then in the top of that with the pin and the lever and all the rest of it, and it screws in the top like a light bulb. And we got issued these, and what you do is you just use it like a real grenade, and you throw it in these buildings which are purpose built, and it goes bang, and there's a little tiny flash because obviously it's a small explosion, and then this rubber thing just bounces around the room like a squash ball that's kind of hard. But it's it's not dangerous as such. Now, whenever you're on the ranges, whatever the range is, always at the end when you're finished, it's then you go back to the start and you walk along with your helmet upturned or a sandbag, and you start picking up all the empty cases and all the like the brass and all the rest of it, and you clear the area to sort of normal.
You police the area, right?
So we're going through this exercise. It was a long, like an entire day fighting in this on this exercise, and me and my mate, it was go to this room, throw the grenade in, nothing. It just didn't go off. We're like, okay. So they have that people like umpires and safety people wandering around, and this guy's like, right, okay, it's not going off, it's a misfire. We'll just pretend that room's cleared and just move on to the next one, and we'll deal with it at the end. So we were clearing up the brass. We get back to this house with this room, and we're like, oh, there's a surely grenade in there. So we're like looking in there, and there's like upturned tables and ammo boxes and bits of metal all over the place that the people have put out as like obstacles. And you get this big, you get like right angle pickets where they like stick them in the ground, bang them in, and hang barbed wire between them. Like about 6 foot long bit of angle iron, and my mate's got it like at the end of a broom, like trying to hit this thing to make it go off from like a safe distance, and it wouldn't go off. He's like, oh no, I'm gonna have to go pick it up and clear. And it's like, but it ain't gone off. He's like, oh, you go. We're like, no, I'm not going near it. You go. It's like, I'm not going near it. You threw it. And it was like the two of us in this doorway having this argument of who's going to go and pick this thing up. It was like the most surreal thing ever. And in the end, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not having it. I'll just pretend we've never been here. And he's like, oh, all right then. So he walks in, picks this thing up between thumb and forefinger, like at arm's length, with his head turned away. Like, I don't know what he thought was going to keep him safe. And he's like walking it out, like really gingerly. And there's these two guys up on a balcony on a window on a building across the street. I've been watching this entire escapade, and they're literally like elbows on these railings, hands in the hand, like, head in the hands like this, just like, what are these two idiots doing? And he walks out with this thing in his arms, like between his thumb and forefinger, outstretched, so his eyes all squinted together, like, and he just happened to get eye contact with one of them up in his house, and he's like, it's Charlie, it's a dud, it's not gone off yet. And the guy just looks at him and goes, we cleared that house like 3 hours ago. And it's just this moment of, okay, now I feel really silly. He's like, put it in his pocket and walks off, pretending it never happened. But yeah, that's probably not really scary, but it was quite amusing. And I'm not going near that. No chance, not happening.
Wayne the Bigfoot Woodturner says one of his scariest episodes was when he was arguing with his wife on the phone and then realized he still had to go home.
I can definitely see it. I can definitely see how that would be scary.
He also said he had a 24 long bandsaw, snaps 6-inch wide bandsaw. Yeah, man, that'll make it go. What did Andy Pugh said something earlier? Let me grab that, Andy. Hold on a second. A 240 volt electric shock in front of a class with a kit that specifically specified it shouldn't be above 30 volts. Well, whose fault was that, Andy?
So that weren't one of them machines that they do. They make your hair stick up, is it? Where it's got like a metal bulb on top.
Is that a Van de Graaff?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, it has like a really fast belt that goes around really, really fast.
TJ says, TJ, I've been there. One of the most scary. My wife told me she was pregnant. Yeah, that's pretty scary. I mean, especially if you're not expecting it. It's like, oh, holy moly. Life is about to change, kids. All right, next question then. Let's move on. Andy asks, our inquisitive one, and thank you for the questions once again, Mr. Pugh.
Keeping this podcast going for 3.5 years.
No, yeah, man. I mean, we'd have nothing to talk about if it wasn't for Andy. Not that we have anything besides Andy's questions to talk about anyway. So you can tune in for 15 minutes each week and be done if you'd like. Have you ever been scared by something enough to change your habits or things that you do? Andy, I don't know that I would use the word scared. But yes, when I cut a portion of my thumb off on the table saw, let's just say I have a better focus while operating that piece of machinery than I did before. And it wasn't. I say it wasn't my fault. It was my fault. Anytime something you injure yourself, it's your fault. But there were extenuating circumstances that put my thumb through the freaking blade. So, not making excuses. It was my fault. But yes, every time I turn on the table saw, it's amazing how acutely I am paying attention to what I'm doing compared to prior when I was just throwing things through the blade. But so I don't think I was actually scared, Andy. But yeah, it did refocus me. Anybody else got something that they got scared enough to do?
Ideally, it's something I should have learned and known right from the start when I first started turning. Is stand to the side of the piece that you're turning. Obviously not right round the corner, but to the side a little bit so you're out of the firing line should it come off. When you're doing stuff between centres, that's
Got a question.
what I do now.
Got a question for people that are novices, much like myself. When something flies off a lathe, that's usually disengaging from the chuck side of the lathe and not the tail side, correct?
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
I imagine so.
Could go, I mean, it could go. It could go either way,
yeah.
but it could go either way. But I'm just saying the majority of the times it comes off the headstock.
It's more like
Yeah.
headstock.
Okay, there you go.
Every time anything's bounced off the lathe because of that, for whatever reason, it always seems to. It doesn't come off with any real force because it's spinning. It's kind of has that, that is it Coriolis effect when you have that like a spinning object and it doesn't fly off in like a straight line like a projectile. It sort of comes.
Well,
off.
It's not like kickback on a table saw, but if you're turning a bowl and that bowl decides to shatter on you and it hits you, it's gonna friggin' hurt. I mean,
because that comes out radially, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But generally, like every time a piece, and to be honest, they tend to be spindle bits that fly off, have flown off with me in the past. They're spinning, so they sort of, it hurts when it hits you. Don't get me wrong, and that's why you wear a face shield. But it's always like
depends about the first point of contact. So I mean, you're right in principle. Apart from the first point of contact, if it meets an object initially in its release, that energy is imparted on it and it straightens out its trajectory, in which case it retains most of that energy. So if you happen to be, if it goes bounce, thump, thunk, you're copying it with much more energy than it would have had just in the spin.
Oh yeah,
but you're absolutely right.
I actually had a funny story about that. So I actually nearly lost my phone with something coming flying off the lathe.
I remember you saying about this. Yeah.
So my phone was on top of a stool that was in my workshop before it got decorated, and a bowl came flying off the lathe, clumped the stool that was on the bench, and I was like, "Where's my phone? I needed to take pictures," and I couldn't find it. I had to go into my video editor and slow my video right down and watch my phone end up in the mop bucket.
I remember that. I remember you telling that story. That's how you found your phone. What about you, Dale? You got anything that scared you?
I've got a couple. Good Lord. My favorite one is when I was 12 and one of those kids that fancied himself being able to repair TVs. But TVs back in that particular day, still, there's kind of two types of power supplies in the old days. There's the ones that had like a transformer with capacitors and all of that, and it would hold charge. And your modern ones are more switch mode, so they're far more solid states. This was one of the old ones with capacitors, and I was trying to figure out why this TV was rolling, kind of thing. There's a couple of little things I'd worked out, some little variables, and I was in turning the variables to sort out the pitch, and the screwdriver touched the edge of the cage of this thing, which in my naivety, I'd somehow got into my head that unplugging the thing was a good idea, but what I'd done is I'd rubbed it of its earth, basically, while it was discharging, and tapped it, and threw myself a good 8 feet across the room. And I've not done that again.
I was just going to say, as a 12-year-old, because that's sort of a dangerous time, isn't it? That's like...
Note to self, solid state only do I work on in the future.
Yeah, I mean, for a kid to do that, I'd be like, oh, that was bad, but because you're sort of a bit naive and innocent, you don't know what's happened or why it's happened, so you just like, oh, maybe I'll just give it again and it won't happen because it's happened already, kind of deal. or did you?
No, this was a proper sitting on the ground, looking at the TV, looking at your hand, holding the screwdriver, looking at the back of the TV, looking at your hand, looking at putting the screwdriver down and walking out the room and having a good cry.
Back out slowly. I'm not taking my eyes off you again.
That's pretty much about it.
You know, and maybe Richard's going to change my mind, but I'm surprised because each one of you has been to the States, correct? Dale, you've been to the U.S., right?
Yeah.
No, and I've been to the U.K. None of us have said that we drove on the wrong side of the road, which would be rather scary.
Well, there's the old rule: the drivers to the middle. Whatever car you're in, if you're sitting in front of the wheel, you go to the middle.
I do have a story about that though, because we don't have a lot of roundabouts in the U.S. I mean, occasionally you'll come across a few, and I never had been through a roundabout before until I went to Ireland. And I'm driving on, for me, the wrong side of the road, and I got a roundabout that I have no clue on how this freaking thing's supposed to work and operate. Yeah, that was a little tedious, but it wasn't. I don't say it's scary. It just was heightened alerted. I was alert. Richard, what about you? You got anything that changed your habits?
I tell you what is worse than driving on the wrong side of the road, Chris, and that is driving on the correct side for you, but on the incorrect side of that vehicle. So for you, it'd be driving a right-hand drive car, and for us, it'd be driving a left-hand drive car, but on our own roads.
That's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, because that completely just negates everything that Dale just said about you being in the middle of the road, because you're not. It's 100%. Like being a cyclist in a metal box, and you go to junctions, and everything's against you. Like bits of the vehicle are all in the way. We used to have a lot of left-hand drive Army Land Rovers that had come over from Germany States? When Germany was kind of winding down. And when you've got an Army Land Rover and you're left-hand drive trying to look behind you to pull out of a junction that's kind of at an angle rather than square on, you cannot see anything. So coming up to a roundabout, it's just you never know what's going on, because you might as well just close your eyes and go for it, and there'll be a gap or there won't, and just wait for the thud
and hope for the best.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting experience. I mean, if you've got someone with you, it's slightly different, but if you're driving on your own, that's quite a
all right.
nerve-wracking.
We've got to move along, and we can probably do this one pretty quickly because we haven't even told our own stories yet. Ever scared someone else? Andy, I guess my answer to you was no, not cruelly. I've been cruel about it. I mean, I've never scared someone to the point where they became terrified. So my answer to that would be no. I mean, yeah, I've always surprised people or shocked them or whatever the case may be, but that's just that's just kidding around. I've never actually done something with the intent of scaring the living bejesus out of anybody. So no, I have never done that. But maybe I'm just boring. What about you guys?
I had an incident when I was an air cadet. So I would have been maybe 16 or 17 years old. And we used to... the air cadets had like these little flights around the country where they'd take cadets to go flying in. At the time, it was the de Havilland Chipmunk, which was a tandem propeller aircraft, like a little light, low-wing monoplane, real small aircraft. And we used to... have these. I used to be what they called a staff cadet, so it'd be my job to escort people out to the aircraft and strap them into the aircraft and fit them in their parachute and things like that, and make sure they didn't walk across the airfield and get run over by an aeroplane and those sorts of things. And there's like a perk of that. If there were any empty slots for flying, we used to get to go flying. So that was the kind of incentive for us. And I used to fly a lot out of this particular place, and you get to know the air crew quite well, and you fly with them fairly regularly, and you get a little bit more kind of experience, and you get experiences, so they let you do a lot more, and you get a lot more kind of lessons and more ability and all the rest of it. And the last flight of the day, obviously, I don't know if you know this, with aircraft in particular, there's like a massive long checklist for turning the thing on, and then there's a massive long checklist for turning the thing off at the end, and everything you do, like pre-takeoff checks, pre-landing checks, pre-going from A to everything, and it's literally a list, and you've got like a pad on your thing that says like 1, do this, 2, do that. And with these old piston aircraft, there's 2 switches called magneto switches, and they're basically the kill switch for everything, like just reset back to factory standard, but without actually resetting. They're just the turn off. So I got in the back of this chipmunk. We were doing the last flight of the day, and the ground crew, the actual guy that worked at the airfield, kind of pointed at the switches and said, "Are you happy doing these switches when you get back?" Yeah, no problem. And we were halfway through the flight, and these things were behind like a spring-loaded guard and everything. And I was like, "Oh, I mustn't forget to do that at the end." And I went to put my hand up and went, "No, don't do that." Just something said, "Don't do that now. I'll do it otherwise." And we got back. It was all uneventful. We got back. We landed. The pilot's going through his fleet checks, and the guy tapped on the window and went, "You still okay to do the switches?" "Yeah, no worries." And I just went click and flicked these 2 switches off, like totally unbeknownst to the actual pilot in the front. I just turned the whole thing off and like ignition off. We go, let's go. And he didn't know what to do. He was like, "What's going on here? What's blah, 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 blah." And it suddenly dawned on him, and he's like, "Yeah, because it was a surprise for me as well." And I tell you what, that incident, not the actual turning off the switches, but me sticking my hand up like mid-flight and going, just something going, "No, don't do it now. Do it later."
Oh, you did it mid-flight. That would have been a problem.
That thought physically haunts me. Like I get an actual dread. Like, God, imagine what would have happened. Oh my! I didn't for no reason other than just something went. "No, don't do it now. Do it when you get back." Like a casual.
We've got to. That's pretty crazy. We've got to press on. I'm sorry because we are running a little short of time because we got Jamie's thing to do and we want to leave you some time, Richard. Jamie, what about you? Have you ever scared any of the bejesus out of somebody?
Not intentionally, no. But I guess it was kind of, we were both scared, I guess, at exactly the same time. So back in the days when I used to work for a glazing company, we had an old van on our forecourt out the back, and we needed it moved. And the place where we was, but it was a place called Porthole Lane, and it's actually a place where they used to bury the people that died of the plague. So it's called Porthole Lane, right? So where we was, we was up on there. And there was a big dip, and that little dip was where the porthole part was, but it was all owned by my boss at the time. So he was like, "Well, just go and pop that van down there." And we was like, "All right, no problem." But this hill was steep, really, really steep, right? So we're like, "All right, no problem." Problem is, couldn't find the keys. Right, so it was a case of release the handbrake and push it. Right, so we've got everyone in the factory, and me and this other guy called Sean sat in the front seat. There's me steering it. Right, they pushed us over the edge of this little hill, but it turned out to be really, really steep and really, really long. We went shot straight over the porthole, through the fence, and landed into the forecourt of a carpet company. And we was like, we can't pushing it back on our own, and we just left it there. So me and him were like, "Whoa," because we didn't know what was coming up after that. Since we saw a big pile of leaves, we were like, "This ain't slowing down. This ain't slowing down," and the brakes weren't working. So
the way you need to move the van, we'll just move it onto their land, and it'll be their problem then at the bottom of the hill.
Well, no, we was hoping it was just. We didn't know if the brakes was working or not. We intended that we'd be able to stop it when we got down to the porthole bit, because that was still my boss's land. He owned that part. But we put the foot on the brakes, it weren't stopping. So it just carried on going. You're muted, Chris.
No wonder. I said, okay, great, quickly, because gentlemen, we really are short of time. Dale, have you? And if you don't mind, quickly, have you ever scared anybody?
Sure, I'll do it dead quick. So kind of coming up through the career kind of thing, you get jobs that you can do the weekend or stuff like that. So one factory that I used to work in IT at, used to do a shutdown every year. So you'd go out and you'd clean machines and you do stuff and you get some extra money in your pay packet. One machine was a pumice machine. So I'd sort of get lots of, pumice stone in it for making the printed circuit boards that used to get rough, so it would take the next set of treatment pretty well. So I'd been given the job of cleaning this thing. I've got the big hose in it, a fire hose in it. I'm cleaning this thing out. Next thing you hear a door bang, and I just look up like this, fire hose still pointing out the way, and soak the individual who walks through the door, who happens to be the CEO. He got a fright, I got 2 frights, and just held on to my job.
Surprise. All right, scariest thing that's happened to you personally, and we gotta blow through these guys, so I'll make mine quick. When I first met my wife, I met her in California. And she, at the time, when we were just dating, she drove this 1968 Volkswagen Bug. And it was a nice Bug. I mean, well, cosmetically, it was a nice Bug. Okay, I'll put it that way. And occasionally, because I just moved there and didn't have money for a car, she would let me borrow her car from time to time. And so I had to go do something. I forget what, but I'm driving down the highway, and I'm doing about 55 miles per hour on this highway. And I went to go change lanes. And the steering column snapped, and the steering wheel did this in my hands while I'm doing 55 miles an hour down a driveway. That scared the living you-know-what out of me. I mean, and thankfully, obviously Volkswagens were a stick back then. Best thing I could do was just start downshifting and hitting the brake and just trying to wait for this. And this car was veering into the other lane as I'm doing this. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to effing die. But I managed to get it off the road. But yeah, that's scary. You're driving down a road and all of a sudden your steering wheel decides I'm not working anymore. That'll wake you up.
That's probably scarier than not being able to stop. It was like not being able to stop or point it in a safe direction whilst trying to stop.
Oh my God. Yeah, that scared the living crap out of me. I don't mind telling you. So that's the scariest thing that's ever actually happened to me. What about you guys?
Huey said 55 flat out then.
I don't get it, but okay, whatever.
Miles an hour.
No, 55 was fast enough. That's what the speed limit was in the U.S. when that happened to me. So sorry. It was 55 saves lives. Do you guys not remember that campaign? Okay, never mind. All right, whatever.
Double nickel. Just remember the double nickel thing for the fuel saving.
I got pretty scared with
you guys can kiss my whole rear end, both of you and TJ, right now. Go ahead, Richard. I'm sorry.
35 going downhill. Nice one, TJ. Yeah, I think I've said this story before with a router when I didn't tighten the collet nut up. I just did it finger tight and got distracted and never put the spanner on it, and it came out. That was it wasn't scary at the time. It was one of those because I didn't know what had happened, and it all sort of when it did come out, it was afterwards. I was like, ooh, that's and actually that probably relates back to Andy's question about changing the way you work, because it's become more of a double check. I'm holding the spanner. Did I do the nut up? Do you know what I mean? Just as like an extra second to do that.
That'll scare you. I'll give you that. What about you, Jamie? What's the scariest thing that's happened to Mr. Page? Besides being born.
I'll quickly run through it. I mean, there's been multiple occasions, I'll be honest with you.
You were born?
I'll quickly go through. Yeah, there was that.
Those spiral words terrifying.
2.5 years after I was born, my mum and dad had a sister. That was quite scary. So yeah, again, it goes back to me being at the glazing company. So this day I was actually cutting the glass ready for the glass units this time. And we had our usual delivery come in on the Thursday, and we're taking the glass off. And after we got the glass off, straight away start cutting up the glass for the units. Well, when you get these glasses up, these are like I think they're like 8 foot by 4 foot sheets of glass. So there was a special way you basically pick it up straight, spin around 90 degrees, put it down onto the bench. Well, as I picked it up, it shattered and flexed and come straight down on top of me. So I kind of went like that and covered myself, and I got a nice little scar going down the side of my arm to remind me that it was there. It caught me.
Have you ever seen that movie? I don't know what movie it was. It was a movie where there was a bunch of glass like that in the back of a truck, and the truck took off, and one of the sheets of glass flew off and decapitated a dude, and it showed the guy's head rolling down the glass. Anyway, that was said. That'll mess you up.
And this wasn't toughened glass either. This was proper. If it hit me, it would slice me.
Oh yeah.
Charles de Gaulle.
So right at the top there, it properly sliced me, and then it's a scratch for about 6 inches down my arm.
Oh my god.
Did you when you were at the glass company, did you ever do that thing where you got like the suction cup things and you're on the front and the guy's on the end and you have to take it down the street and there's the old boy on his bike and then there's the guy paving the road and all of a sudden the window cleaner comes past on his bike with the ladder.
No, we did use them though. We did use them a few times. Yeah, we did use them.
Dale,
Was it
what
all in
about
black
you?
and white as well?
What about you, my friend?
We had me and a mate were in a old Austin Mini, which had a 1.2 litre engine put into it, which the Mini we're talking about here is from the Italian Job, the old Michael Caine movie. So they're really small, they're like a slot car basically. And we're driving this thing around some country roads near where we grew up. And I was driving, and we went around one corner, and the car went up on 2 wheels, like a scene from a stunt car movie. And it's just sitting there just long enough to think, we're going over. But nope, back down on the wheels.
Oh man,
that one's other just for a moment. Couldn't do it with any other car except a Mini because you've got 2 fat kids in it, so it moved up. And that was it.
That's Dale pretending he's a Hollywood stuntman.
But yeah, that one haunts me to this day.
I'm going to turn it up on 2 wheels and go right between these 2 buildings. Just
That's what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to go past number 12 and number 14's post boxes. That's what we're going to do.
I did something similar in that was in a Land Rover out in the Welsh wilderness. I'm not going to say whose Land Rover. It wasn't my own Land Rover. I won't tell you who the owner was. But me and this guy,
he doesn't know to this day.
No, I've since.
So
I've
the
since
axle broke the
left
following
Rover.
week, Richard. We won't go into it. Go ahead.
So we're driving across the Welsh countryside, tiny little outbeaten country roads. It'd been raining, so it was pretty nasty, and I was driving, and it was a left-hand drive Land Rover actually, as funny as it goes. So it gives you an idea whose it was. So the other boy's in basically the driver's seat, and he's got the map, and he's going down this way, and the road goes round to the right, and then he said, "There's a left-hand turn up here," and that was it. So I'm pootling along. I wasn't speeding. I wasn't being dangerous because it was not particularly nice weather. But he just made this off the cuff, like, "Oh, there's a left-hand turn up here," and it was one of those like long junctions. So it had got like not like a slip road, but it was like the turn was
Hard left-hand turn.
Off.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
it wasn't. It wasn't a hard left, but it was.
Okay.
But it had got like a big curve, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So there was
Got
like a big tarmac area in the middle of this junction. It's quite a big junction, and right in the middle of that, you get all like the road slime and the little gravelly bits and all the rest of it. So I'm pootling along, and I get to like the start of the bend for this kind of shoot off junction, and I just looked across it and goes, "Do you want me to take this?" And he goes, "Yeah." Like as if he'd said, "You've got to take the next left." I'm like, "Right, okay." And there wasn't quite enough time without like headbutting the dashboard. So I just started making this turn because it looked quite long. And all of a sudden I get into this middle gravelly slimy bit and it just went all 4-wheel slide straight across. Well, this little road that was coming off this main road had got a dirty great big 5-foot drainage ditch in it and like V-cut. And we just literally slid sideways and just went doink. And landed in this ditch, like the side with the door up against the side of the ditch, and the wheels on the other, and we're like, we literally had to climb out of the driver's door up onto the side and onto the road, and go like, oh my god, we're gonna have to get pulled. And then we're looking at it, going, well, and it's like a couple of minutes going, we'll give it a go. So we literally put it in 4-wheel drive and managed to reverse this thing out of this 45-degree bank. I'm end up sat in the middle between the 2 seats. He's slammed up against literally like the door with me on top of him. I never speak of this again. I thought I was going to, you're just sliding and you see this ditch coming and going, oh my god, we're going over. We're going all the way over. Have we got our belts on? No. Oh dear, this is going to. And then we just go.
This is going to hurt.
Oh,
so lucky.
unbelievable.
Yeah, that was.
Thank you to everybody out in the chat that shared your stories with us, because some of them, one of them was pretty funny. The other one were pretty horrific. It's time for Jamie to sing. Jamie needs to do his warm up. The fat lady is warming up there, Jamie. So gargle and let's get on with it.
Before I do, I need to read out this from TJ Tony, which is Welsh Terry. He says, I drove around a corner and once he said to my wife, "Oh look, there's somebody's wheel going down the road." 10 seconds later, we hit the road. Oops, it was my front wheel.
Terry an RAC man or an AA man?
Hey man, yeah, he was a roadside recovery.
He's like a triple A man over there.
Look, we'll be there in a minute to pick you up. No, that's all right. I'll walk.
He's probably got some contacts that can help him out.
Doug Miller's right. We all have scary things that we've lived through. That basically reasons why we should not be alive today. But somehow got lucky. Hi, Jamie. Vocal cord time. Do it, my man.
It's time for Jamie's page.
Yay!
Sorry,
my favorite part. Not
right. So just to let everybody know, on the 27th of this month, the Virtual Craft Festival is back for its 5th time in a row.
Yay!
So we're looking forward to that. We've got some great new members along the show, like Mr. Cute's actually going to be on there, streaming alongside Franco and Mr. Berkey. And we've got Al's Hack Shack going to be on there as well. So out doing Al Shack's things.
Isn't Jake doing one as well? I think I saw.
Yeah, Jake's going to be, and Jake's actually sorted out his internet now as well. So that's even better.
And so is Dale. Dale's going to be.
So we've got Mike from Stonecoat Countertops going to be on there. Plus, we've obviously got the returning Heidi as well and Costas. So
and Dale,
and Dale, of course. Dale's going to be there, and with the glass blowers are going to be back as well. And Brian from Heartwood Turnings, there's another new one going to be on. He didn't want to, but I said to him, "You are doing it."
Well, Jamie, I'm just saying because Dale sitting right here would be rather rude if you ignored him. I mean,
while we're on the subject, I want to publicly thank Dale for all the help that he's been giving me to do with the Virtual Craft Festival.
Nice job too, by the way.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
So, and with that, my shout out goes to the Virtual Craft Festival YouTube channel. Hashtag Dale's idea.
Once again, Jamie didn't work on anything.
It's another website he doesn't do.
Another website.
So if another website that Dale set up that will redirect you to the Virtual Craft Festival YouTube channel. We're only a few off getting the custom URL, which I think we're 16 off.
Don't know.
Getting the custom URL, I think.
Away, yeah.
So if you can go and subscribe to that, please go and subscribe to that so we can get our custom URL and do a few extras that we may need to do that YouTube won't let us do until we get to it. That would be great. So if you go to virtuallycrafty.com or just type in Virtual Craft Festival into YouTube, you'll find the running playlist and all that good stuff. So yeah, go on, Chris.
Quick question. And this is long range thinking, but once this COVID whole thing is done and dusted and we're all back over it, do you guys plan to continue doing the Virtual Craft Festival?
Yes.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Okay.
Yeah, we're planning on making it a thing.
All right. Dale, you are our guest. So you, sir, go next. Who do you want to give some love to today?
So there's a guy called Andy Bird from Andy Bird's Builds, which seems appropriate. He just popped out a video in March the 5th where he accidentally caught himself having an accident with a table saw. Now, it's not graphic in the sense, but what he goes on to do is talks you through the events that run up to the accident itself, what happened next, and then gives some advice about, which is much more important, about things to think about should you have an accident, things to have ready, what are you going to do if you have a serious accident, and it's really quite informative. So he's clearly it's kind of left very much an impression on the man. You can see it as he's doing his talk. Go check him out. Andy Bird Birds. I had a serious table accident.
He and I had the same experience. Because kind of did that too. Never put a video out on it. Good idea. Good on him for that. Richard, you want to go next? Or you want to go last?
I'll go last because obviously I've got my little ramble towards the. Towards the
no
end,
problem.
that's all right.
And we're getting there too, but we've got a little bit of time. My shout out goes to kind of hard not to give it to this guy this week, Carl Jacobson. He made and turned, I should say, ravioli molds from my buddy Franco Noce. And they came out really, really nice. And as usual, Carl's good ideas come from Robin.
Yeah, they do.
And she had design input one-on-one, and it came out amazing. I mean, it's a pretty awesome video if you get the chance to take a look at it. In fact, it's so often that those of you in the States, I don't know, do you guys have Woodcraft over in the UK or in Europe? Probably not. It's probably a U.S. Well, it's Woodcraft is basically what's your wood store that you go to there to buy your blanks and stuff, Jamie?
Yandles. It's kind of like a Yandles.
Woodcraft is kind of like the Yandles in the U.S. Anyway, they thought it was so cool. They put the images of the two things that Carl made on the front cover of their magazine site. So yeah, very cool video and very cool thing. And Franco is beyond himself happy. And I guess we can watch social media for Franco to be posting pictures of ravioli he makes with those darn things.
Oh,
so
great!
I know. Another reason.
The ravioli tasted great.
Another reason to hate that guy. So yeah. Anyway, so check it out, Carl Jacobson, and the ravioli molds he made. It's a kind of an interesting video to watch. He did it with both CNC and with the lathe. So cool stuff. Richard, your shout out, buddy.
Cool. So my shout out this week, it's kind of just it's a little fun thing. So I think it's about 2 or 3 minute videos. It sort of fits, not quite as well as Dale's shout out, but it's from the Sun's YouTube channel. It's like a red top tabloid fish wrap newspaper in the UK. That's by the by. It's just where this video was. It's about a little penguin in the South Antarctic Sea getting chased by a bunch of killer whales, being videoed by some British Antarctic Survey scientists and some bloggers. I'll leave it at that. Genuinely, take my word for it. It's a real kind of heartwarming, kind of cool little clip, and it's one of those things that I saw it and I just thought that wins the internet for me today. So that's my shout out. Little penguin being chased by killer whales.
And spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! Not as bad as what it sounds.
I was going to say, when you say it like that, it's just not really that sort of like heartwarming, great internet sort of
spoiler
thing.
Spoiler alert! The way Richard told that, the little seal got away. Okay, so you don't have to go watch gore on behalf of Mr. Morley. Well, thank you very much, Richard, for that mental picture. I'll try not to keep that in my mind too long. What else you got today for us, Bo?
Well, I mean, you guys know this. You are already in the loop and have been for some weeks now. How many weeks has this been coming? Like 5, 6, something like that, I think?
5 or 6, yeah. Something like that.
It might come to a surprise to some people. It probably won't, actually, when you think about it. But I reluctantly am going to be stepping down from the podcast. There's no kind of fluffing it up or beating around the bush or anything about it. I don't want to make it a big thing. It's pure and simple. There's been no kind of weird, like Jamie, he's loving it really. He's putting on a big act. Like,
Richard's breaking up with us. He doesn't love us anymore.
Honestly, it's not like some kind of weird political thing. It purely, plain and simple, I am so busy. When we first started the podcast, we started doing it actually on the Sunday night because of me and my situation.
Yes.
It was kind of the only time in the whole week when we could all guarantee to be there. 5 years down the road, my life's changed a lot. I'm just so busy with work, working more, longer hours. It just means that it takes away from the family time on a Sunday night. As a lot of you can probably appreciate, Sunday evenings are kind of precious times. And it's not, I don't think actually it's going to be like 100% goodbye. I mean, I'd love to come back on shows and be like a guest person every now and again.
Richard, you are welcome whenever the mood strikes you, my friend, and you should know that.
100%. I don't want anyone thinking, oh no, they've lost another one. There's something real dodgy going on there. These guys are literally, after 5 years, they're like family. Chris, you're more like the ex-wife, and Jamie, that weird uncle that you only see at weddings. But honestly, I can't.
I'm not sending you a check. I don't owe you any alimony. Get out of here. The ex-wife. That's nice. I'm glad.
At least I didn't sleep with Richard.
I'm glad he's leaving.
Yeah, so
just as he was winning me over as well.
Yeah, get in with the routers and quit while you're ahead. But so 100%. I'd love to come back and do the odd show here and there when you're stuck and you're desperate and you need help, and I'll come back and guide you. Don't worry. And I'll listen. Honestly, I'll still be listening to the show.
We're about to guide you occasionally too, Mr. Morley. It's not get so full of yourselves yet. I mean,
yeah.
you're still vulnerable to getting poo poo thrown at you.
Still vulnerable for coughing up the fees for the hosting, aren't I, at the moment? So
no, you're not.
One of y'all better.
No, we have to sort that out.
And cool. Richard, you should know that, my friend. You are welcome anytime that the mood strikes you, and that's not even a question. So please. But in the interim, our good friend Dale has decided to sit in with us on a weekly basis until we sort this whole thing out. So,
dude, you have no idea what you're walking into.
I do. But Richard, thank you for 5 years on a Sunday. I can honestly say for 5 years on a Sunday, I've enjoyed being your ex-wife. You SOB. So I'm going to miss you, my friend.
For about a nanosecond.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I honestly, I've loved doing the podcast. It's been an education. It's been good fun. It's been a laugh, and it's kind of kept me with a focus, if that makes sense, because it's been that regular kind of weekly thing that you can sort of.
One thing that was constant in your life of craziness, yeah.
Awesome.
I
think that pretty much wraps up the show. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing a free. We're not on Patreon, but we might do an after party for the live listeners. But we don't know. Thank you for listening for the last 5 years to me, Rabbit On, and for the rest of the time to these three fine folks. So until next week, when they talk about something that I have no inclusion with whatsoever, thank you all for listening, and you have a good time.
Have a great week, everybody.
Take it easy, everybody.
Bye.
Awesome.